Hey everyone, and welcome to the Channel for Healing, the podcast that challenges you to take a look inside, to reveal, heal, and fall in love with all of the pieces of who you are. I'm Ashley Akers Smith, and I'm super excited to share today's episode with you because I have a really important and special guest joining us. Today, my husband Mike will be joining me to share some insight on what it's like to be married to a psychic medium. So he's going to be here with us, shedding some light on what it's like from his perspective to be the person that gets to walk with me in our real everyday lives as I do the work of connecting with the spirit world and sharing these incredible messages with others, oftentimes when we least expect that I'm going to. As always, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I invite you to walk with me as I share how my passion for personal growth and healing has continued to lead me to have a much deeper connection with not only the physical world, but the spirit world as well. I believe that real connection is possible once we take the time to understand what it means to unapologetically emerge in the world as our true and authentic selves. I'm committed to showing up and continuing to create space for you to be exactly who you are. So join me as I once again lean in, get vulnerable, and share with you the good, the bad, and the very best of what my journey back to myself has allowed me to discover. And today, how all of this work shows up in my marriage from day to day. So thank you. Again, thank you so much for tuning in with me. And as I always love to say, you are right on time. So, as I just mentioned, my husband Mike is joining us to answer some of the questions that he gets asked most often about what it's like to be married to someone who does this kind of work and, how we kind of navigate this life together with me doing the work that I do. So, Mike, why don't you take a moment just to kind of introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we can kind of jump right into it.
Sure. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you, Ashley, for inviting me and allowing me to be your first guest on your podcast program here. So, a little bit about me. I'm 52. We've been married for a little over a year now, and we both have children. I have one. Ashley has two, but as we like to say, we share three kids together, and it's been the ride of both of our lives for sure. And we're seeing, this paying off dividends as they start growing older and we see them growing into the young men they are. A little bit about me personally. I spent, the last 25 and a half years of my life, I spent in the state police. I was a trooper, rose to the ranks, through the ranks to captain. A lot of time was spent in intelligence units operationally and behind a desk. But at 52, or 51 at the time, I had an opportunity that I really couldn't turn down. I wasn't looking to retire from the state police, but I could, given the fact that I had my 25 years in. I was introduced to the vice president of public safety at Temple University through a mutual friend, and had the opportunity to speak with her, interview for the position. And I was lucky enough to be chosen to assume the rank of deputy chief for Temple. So that's where I've been. In June, it'll be June 5th. Will be 1 year.
Crazy.
Certainly a transition from traditional law enforcement to higher education. It's a little different in that we manage a pretty large department of about total enlisted and civilian, about 150 people. From a law enforcement perspective, but to manage that along with higher education on a day-to-day level in the dynamic North Philadelphia community, in Pennsylvania, it's certainly makes for interesting times for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it and still learning every day, and things are going great.
So I think it was important that you shared those parts of yourself and your background, because I do believe that, the police work that you do and have done for over 26 years, right? has caused you to have a certain mindset and a certain belief in certain things, and have evidence of certain things, and you have to kind of see something to believe it. So that's why I thought it would be great to have you on and kind of talk about how your perspective has really kind of changed. And so, there's lots of skeptics out there, and it's never ever been my job. I've never felt that it's my duty to really kind of convince people of one thing or another, or try to get them to believe in what I do, but instead really simply share the things that I feel called to share at any given moment. Um, but I wanted to ask you, actually, what were your first thoughts when you realized kind of what was happening to me, that I had this ability, when I started sharing this openly, and that I, had the ability to connect with people that have crossed over and that are on the other side? What were your first thoughts, like when you were like, okay, this is like a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the very beginning, I think you and I both weren't really sure what was going on. I mean, you a little more so than me understood, because you had always felt your whole life that you kind of had this ability to
Hmm.
feel more so than the average person, so to speak. But
Yeah.
um, I would say over the last 2 years, it's gotten more and more what may have at the time seemed coincidental. Um,
Hmm.
and it's certainly developed into what it is today. But um, I don't want to say I didn't believe. I just never really maybe had the education or the opportunity to really understand that. I grew up Catholic. I always believed you passed. The physical body was buried. The soul, went to heaven or hell. I mean, that's
Hmm.
kind of the way it went as far as belief systems go. And um, you didn't really give much thought to the spirit world or
Hmm.
afterlife. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, I think, certainly, you had gone to a psychic that was pretty good. Probably, it's probably been like 8 years since you first went, I guess, maybe.
Even longer than that, I think, to
Yeah.
be honest with you.
But she would always give you some good insight on certain things. And I know you discussed it with me, and we were always like, wow, she's pretty on, or how'd she
Hmm.
know that, or whatever. So I think that was probably my first like foray into that kind of thought process or that kind of world. So, not that I didn't believe in it. I thought it was pretty crazy that she was as accurate as she was.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that kind of opened the door for me into, you know, believing that you can speak to spirit and
Yeah, there's
hear
more.
things. Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, as you mentioned earlier, we've been married for a little bit over a year. We've been together for well over a decade. So you were kind of helping me sort of navigate this deep healing that I often talk about, and healing the trauma that I experienced. And I do believe now, in hindsight, looking back, that um, all of that pain and unresolved childhood trauma is what was kind of preventing me from really truly connecting, because I wasn't able to heal those parts of myself, and I wasn't showing up as my authentic self because I didn't feel comfortable or safe really sharing those parts of myself, not only with the world, but really with myself, and really admitting all of those things. So I do believe that that's sort of helped me have such a deeper connection, once I really showed up as I am, and kind of owned these things that had happened to me, and really took responsibility and made my healing a priority, took responsibility for my healing, and made that a priority. I think that that is definitely what has allowed me to deepen that connection with my relationship with spirit and the other side, and my connection not only to spirit, but more importantly to myself, and my highest self. And so I know you've kind of been navigating, so you've helping me navigate, and you've walked with me during that too. So um you've kind of seen the transition, whereas like I was second guessing myself for a long time and thinking like, what is this? Like, I've always been really intuitive since I was little. People in my family have had um this similar kind of intuition, not as developed as I've been able to develop it in the last, like you said too, it's actually even been a little bit longer than, I'd say, 3.5 years, closer to 4 by now, when I really look back. but it was like really once I began the work of sort of trusting myself and kind of leaning into the things I was experiencing and recognizing, you know what, this isn't, I don't think this is like a coincidence, you
Hmm.
know? So like you mentioned, you were never really a believer. Not that you weren't a believer, but you weren't always really a strong believer in, you know, spiritual things or the afterlife or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about sort of where you were and what your beliefs were prior to me starting, which you kind of did that a little bit already, but to now how you feel with me now openly sharing my gifts with others? Like, how did you feel kind of prior to, you know, when you had the limited sort of belief and experiences that you've had versus now with so much that has changed?
Yeah, I guess what I could see now is how people heal, from
Yeah.
hearing things and being able to get messages. Because I feel like so many times people hold on to guilt or a feeling, somebody passes, and then there's no resolution there. So I
Hmm.
feel like what you're able to do gives them some of that resolution and ability to move on. So I just never really, I guess, thought of it
Hmm.
as something like that before, but I've seen it, work,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we'll talk more about some of the specifics of that in a few minutes, but um so yeah, so my next question was going to be like, how have your beliefs changed, and um, if they have, what do you believe kind of caused that to happen? So was there anything? I know you said like you've kind of seen it in like real time, right, with people healing when I'm delivering these messages, but was there anything else you wanted to add to that, or?
Well, and just hearing stories, right? Like
Mm,
even, from family or close friends, even before you started doing readings, formally, informally at the Christmas dinner table or
mm-hmm,
sitting at a couch for a holiday and we're just, sitting there and all of a sudden I could see what's happening with you
mm-hmm.
through your mannerisms and stuff, and we could talk about that later.
Well,
But
that's on my list.
yeah, so but I could just, things, just start popping up and, things that you would never know about something or someone, and, with you get confirmation and it kind of goes from there. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So, one of the things I know a lot of people ask me about you and have asked you when we're out together and someone finds out, you know, about the work that I do. But what would you say is like the number one question that people ask you when they find out that you're married to a psychic medium?
It's probably most of the time like how do you deal with it, or is it a
Hmm.
burden, or like what are your thoughts of it? How do you live with it, and that kind of stuff, are common questions. What do you
Yeah.
think of it?
Hmm.
Um,
Go ahead. Did you want to add something?
yeah, no, I mean, and it's not a burden; it's an adjustment. It's like anything else. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, if if somebody starts a new job and you're kind of getting used to um,
I know all about that.
yeah, you're kind of getting used to the new schedule and the changes
Hmm.
and things that pop up, you know, like we always say, it's like me, I'm supposed to be off with my phone rings and I got to attend to something from work. And it's,
Hmm.
you can't really control necessarily when somebody's coming in spirit wise either.
Very true. Very true. Mike and I, as you know, we had this conversation, you know, within even this last week. Like, it is sometimes difficult for really both of us. Like, right, with your police work, you know, your phone rings like you're on 24/7. It's like you feel the sense of urgency to do the things that you need to do to carry out your responsibilities. And
Mhm.
though it's different, I do feel that same sense of urgency when spirit is kind of nudging me to deliver something. It is that same similar sense of urgency to um, help, you know, help kind of save someone in a different way, in a way that's
Mhm.
different than how you may have to. But yeah, so that makes sense. So um, you kind of touched on this a couple of minutes ago, but you know, I know and you know that you've become very well aware of when I'm channeling spirit or when I'm connecting with the other side. Can you kind of share with anyone that's listening what that looks like from your perspective, and sort of how you've come to recognize when exactly that's happening and what is happening for me when, that
Yeah,
starts? And I mean,
sure.
it's obvious for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I could speak in general, but I'll speak specifically to what happened Monday night, this past Monday night.
Mhm.
I had a conference in Atlantic City for work, and our older stepson, my older stepson, actually son, goes to college down by Atlantic City. So we were, she had come down because the plan was we were going to take him and his girlfriend out to dinner. So the Monday night, my plan was that I was going to take Ash out to dinner, and we were going to, just enjoy the night down there together and spend some time together, and then go from there. But um, you know, as we were just saying, some things do change, and it's not always what it's not. It wasn't a bad thing, but it's something that I had to work through myself, kind of to understand and regulate and have some empathy as to what was going on. So we went to a restaurant in the Hard Rock. There happened to be one seat at this bar that was available. So Ash sat down. I stood behind her. We ordered drinks. We were just talking, and I could see, um, she licks. It's the lip licking, and
Well, not everybody knows what it looks like, so please explain to them how you know what's happening for me, that I'm
yeah,
channeling spirit, that I'm receiving messages in that moment,
right.
even though I have said nothing.
Right. Yeah. So like she licks her lips, and it's kind of like there's a lot of she let's just say lip gloss or chapstick is definitely never going to be running short around here. So yeah, so it's a lot of licking her lips, and then her hands. She'll kind of do this, and kind of like she's writing on her hands, and I see it happening. So I was like, what's going on? Who's coming in, and usually um I don't want to say she may know right away, but she'll get some signs and things. And it was a full restaurant. The bar was packed, like I said, and there was this one older woman, and I would say older, maybe 70, mid 70s, in that range, 65 to 75, let's say, sitting at the bar by herself, and having dinner by herself. And I'm sitting there, and I was asking Ash, like, what's going on? What's going on? Who's coming in? And she wasn't really saying much. And then, like, out of the blue, she just turned to the woman and said, whatever. I forget specifically what you had asked her, but, um, I can kind of see that happening to the point
Hmm.
now, like, what's going on? Who's coming in? Um, you know, and then the that so the conversation started, and it was for the woman, and Ash could elaborate on the conversation maybe a little bit more, to give you an idea how it went. But it was very engaging. And then while we were sitting there, our table was ready. So I the hostess took me to the table. I had come back to tell Ash where it was. I went back and sat down, and it was probably 20 minutes or so went by, and I started getting frustrated because it was supposed to be our night. But thinking about it, like, the woman needed to hear what Ash was giving her. And talking to Ash after the fact, she felt bad because it was supposed to be our time, and work got
Hmm.
involved, but it's not really about work. It's about what the woman needed. And, I worked through that myself emotionally, had a conversation with her, and we worked through it together. But something like that, you really can't control. And that woman really needed to hear what she had to
Hmm.
tell her. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it more.
Yeah, so I mean, that is like one of the challenges to doing work like this, is like when there's no like off hours, right? Like when spirit shows up and tells me, like, listen, I need you to deliver this message to the woman sitting next to you, as an example from Monday. I feel very called to do that. And at the time you had given me kind of the green light to like, hey, I'll go find our table. I'll come back, tell you where it is. And then when you came back, you're like, you finish up. I know how important this work is to you, and how important this is for, this woman to receive this message. It's like with anything that matters to us, right? Either one of us or to anybody, when you're doing something that you love, right? It doesn't feel like work. And I feel so passionate and so humbled to be able to do such important work. And I can kind of get lost in it and lose track of time, because I can literally see someone that I'm sharing a message with. I can see like the heaviness leaving them, like when they're receiving a message from the people that they love. So I know it was like something kind of newish. It's not like we were sitting on the couch watching a movie and we could pause it. um, and I know, we spoke about you feeling frustrated, and that makes sense to me, because I can't just pause it.
Mhm.
Pause that movie in the moment as I'm delivering this message. But I do appreciate, the support that you were able to offer me after, and even just saying like, hey, I thought I was going to be cool for this amount of time, and like I found myself getting frustrated. And that's something we need to kind of figure out moving forward with this, because it is a dance that we do, as to try to figure that
Right.
out, similar to when you're on call or
Yeah.
you get called into something, so
It's not nine to
um
five. It's not 9 to 5. It's not structured. It's not
yeah.
the same every day to day. So there's
Hmm.
always.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what another question that people were asking me about you, like, what is it like living with and being married to a psychic medium? Like, now that things are like full blown, like this is like a thing, I've really developed this to a much higher level than ever before, and it continues to just sort of get bigger and bigger for me. I've learned how to kind of turn it off and on, better better than I
Yeah.
was able to 3 or 4 years ago. But can you kind of give a little bit of insight of what kind of that looks like for our everyday lives, and sort of how you experience those different things?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's exciting. Like I love hearing all the good stories, and it's in the beginning we were both, I think, kind of like, I mean, you were very sure of what your ability was.
Hmm.
You weren't so much, I don't think, confident yet on how it was going to translate to, like, I'm sitting here in front of 5 people. Is it, am I going to be able to do it? Like,
Right.
is it something that I can just turn on or off? And I mean, I know you
Hmm.
do a lot of work and research and education for yourself to kind of prepare. But before
Hmm.
that, especially before that first group reading, like you
Yeah.
know, yeah, you were unsure a little bit, and
Hmm.
but I mean it, it's just, and then it was like a home run, and then it's everyone's been a home run, but I think like
Yeah.
every reading, like something new or amazing, or how you
Hmm.
touch somebody, like, comes out of it.
Yeah. And that is so true. Like I literally, that is what was holding me back, right? And that's like, I talked about this on an earlier podcast that I recorded myself, when I spoke about like ego versus soul. And there is such a big difference, right? When you're in your ego, you're like, oh, what are people going to think? Like, and you get like in your head, it's like your ego fills you with so much doubt. Whereas when you listen to your soul, right, that's like the highest version of yourself. That's like living completely in the present and not fearing, not like basing your thoughts on what's happened in the past or fearing what could happen in the future. But I do remember very vividly, like thinking, I know that I need to do this work. I know that I need to share this. I mean, everybody that I would speak to, I mean, strangers I'd be delivering messages to, but I wasn't doing it like formally, like book a reading with me. And I remember everybody that I spoke to, oftentimes they were strangers, would say you helped me so much. Like I needed to hear this so badly. Like I didn't even know how much I needed this message or these messages. And I think once I got out of my own way and got out of my own head and stopped really caring about what anybody thought, and that like wasn't going to have to convince people.
Mhm.
None of that really mattered. But I think my big fear was like, oh my gosh, if I like book this reading of 5 people, like what if spirit just like bails on me? What if they don't show up,
Mhm.
And then I realized like that's just not going to happen. That's just like not what
Mhm.
happens. Like they
Right.
are always there. I'm open and I believe that I was meant to share this gift with people, and they have helped me, share those incredible messages of healing as a result of me staying really present and staying, researching what I have to do to really stay present with meditation and, all of those types of things. So, as you've been able to kind of watch me deliver these messages to other people, and like I mentioned, oftentimes it's complete and total strangers that
Mhm.
I'm doing this for. What has your experience been as you've kind of witnessed people actually receiving these messages in real time? Like, how is it affecting you as you're watching me? Like, for instance, at the bar Monday night, or earlier at the bar Monday night, we met like a few other strangers, and spirit came through for them as well with me. Like, what is that like for you to experience this when like we're just like grabbing a drink at the bar, like sitting grabbing an appetizer, we're like out at the pool or whatever,
Mhm.
and my lips start going and my hands start going, and someone's here, and I need to connect the spirit world with someone here in the physical world to help them heal in some kind of way. What is that like for you to actually watch that happen in real time?
I mean, it's great to watch. I know there's a lot of times when I feel like maybe you're reluctant to say something, like you're not sure, and I'm pushing you, like only because I've seen how much like I've witnessed how much it's helped other people. So,
Mm-hmm.
when we were in the Dominican Republic, for that older couple, somebody was coming in, and I was like, "Just go say something." You were
Mm-hmm.
like, "No, no." I'm like, "You got to go say something." So I think I find, you know, I don't want to say being a true believer now, but I completely understand that this, spirit is real, and the messages you get are for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, so I just want you to do it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. Like, I know what I imagine is happening for you, right? Like, you've seen it happen. You've seen the healing that takes place on the other end when I'm able to share these messages, especially if it's like a complete stranger that I've never laid eyes on and never spoken and likely will never see again.
usually the
Um,
case. A lot
right.
of times
Most
people
of the
grab.
time, right. Um, so when you're saying to me, like, are you going to say something? Or you got to say something, got to say something, guy, come on. For me, what is happening is, you know, I like a lot of times, not a lot of times people don't believe, but like they have to be validated by something that makes sense to them that there's no way that I would ever know, right? And
Mhm.
especially if it's someone that is a complete and total skeptic. Um and I'm like this with everybody, as you know, I'm very sensitive to how I deliver things. I always ask somebody if they're comfortable
Mhm.
receiving a message, if that's okay with them. Because I never just want to assume that it's okay, because it might not be. Thankfully for me, it has not ever so far been my experience that someone said no, they didn't want to hear anything. Um, but the process for me, when you're telling me like, hey, are you going to say something? You have to go say something, like they need to hear this. So the process for me is me then in that moment asking my guides, and you're not realizing I'm doing this, right? But I'm
Mhm.
asking my guides if I need to deliver this message right now to this person that you're making me feel like I need to send a message to. I'm asking them to please present me with an opportunity to do that, so that I know that it's okay and that they need to hear it. So,
Mhm.
like the example that you brought up in the Dominican Republic, we sat down on our beach chairs. We had like just gotten to the pool. There was an older group of people, probably 6 or 7 of them. Immediately upon sitting down, I was like, lips going a mile a minute, the hands, the writing, like I knew exactly who it was for out of that group. And Mike was saying, go, you got to say something. I'm like, I need a minute, because I'm asking my guides, I'm asking their guides and their loved ones, like what I'm gonna say first to make them feel safe and comfortable in receiving this information from me. um And I literally was asking their guides, like, if I meant to deliver this message, please present me with an opportunity. Because I didn't want to just like walk over this group of 7 people and put somebody on the spot. So I walked over into the pool, and the woman that I was supposed to deliver this message to and was getting the message for literally made a beeline for me, like at the pool. And so it's stuff like that where like I know I'm supposed to say something in that moment. So I oftentimes, you don't know that this is happening in the moment because I'm not doing this out loud, but I'm asking my
Mhm.
guides and the loved ones that are coming through for whoever it is in the moment, um, you know, like kind of the best way to do that in a way that it will be received um, in a healing way for the people that I'm connecting with in the physical world. So yeah, those were good and helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the more difficult parts of this work for you as I do this type of work? What are the kind of harder parts as I do this work?
I don't know that anything's really hard. I think it's just unknown or something new that we just got to navigate through. I think I'm learning too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get a better understanding from you as to, spirit work and other things you're working towards to enhance this, as you're calling. I don't even want to really say it's a career move or anything. It's more of a calling for people.
Yeah.
It's certainly, it's really helping. I haven't seen do anything other than help people.
Mm-hmm.
you're so many people are reaching out after the fact, wanting more information. Obviously, I hear a lot of thank yous, and also it's
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, I, nothing is. I don't view it anything as difficult. Any of those crazy things like us sitting in the middle of a movie and you're getting information and
Mm-hmm.
you're reaching out to somebody on the phone. I mean, that stuff. It's we work through and understand how that can happen for either of us, really, just at a
Sure.
different, different level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do remember like a couple years ago, like, texting with someone on Facebook that I just was like barely connected to, right? Like kind of knew them in passing or knew somebody who knew somebody, and we were connected on Facebook. And I'm like, I gotta reach out to this person and tell them, and they're gonna think I'm crazy. And it's like, I'm like, gotta send that message again. That's like, hi, you don't really know me, but
Mhm.
you're going to think I'm crazy. And then that turned into so many times a 2 hour long, messaging back and forth of sharing these incredible messages. And, at some points you saying like, can we wrap this up? Like, can you tell them, like, can you peace out with them? Like, can you tell
Mhm.
spirits, like, we got to finish this movie or something. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that has been a learning curve for sure. And, at those times, those specific moments, I didn't know how to turn it on and off, or I didn't know how to kind of ask spirit to give me some time or some space before I, continued that work that they were sort of asking me to do. And I am glad that you actually touched on, how you said, like, I don't really want to say this is like a career. Um, and you know this, right? That I really kind of um, struggled with that initially. Like
Mhm.
everybody was like, you have to do this, you have to do this, like you have to help people. And I had such a difficult time, like doing this as like a job, right? But I
Mhm.
was spending so much time. I mean, I literally was like all day, every day. I'm spending time and energy, and it can be very exhausting work physically, emotionally, to do this kind of work and to channel people, because oftentimes I feel physical symptoms of how people died, and um, so I actually just really appreciate that you did kind of touch on how it really is my calling. It is really me truly listening to the call of my spirit and knowing and recognizing that this work is something that I do feel really called to do, and that I do see this as a way that I am able to add value to people in this way and help them heal in some kind of way by connecting to this ability,
Yeah.
and learning more about how I can continue to deepen that connection.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, grief wears on people like stress and other,
mhm.
emotional, PTSD and different
Yeah.
traumas people go through. So the fact that you're able to, and hearing that from people personally
Mhm.
after you've talked to them or whatever, um,
Yeah.
it really is something healing and something people need. And you've had clients that come back and they ask, have you heard anything, like those people are,
Mhm.
they're really struggling in grief, and being able to
Yeah.
provide some of that relief for them,
Mhm.
um, is, it might not be scientific medicine, but it certainly is
Yeah.
very healing and necessary for people. So it's
Mhm.
great to
Yeah.
see.
And, so touching on that, actually, a lot of my listeners know that, we lost your dad in November of 2022. And, sorry. Um,
You can't cry. You're gonna make me cry now.
you were going to cry anyway, because I've just turned you into a big baby. But, um, yeah, so I remember when your dad passed away, and like, thankfully I have both of my parents here. I remember just like looking at you and your family, and even sitting in my own grief because of how much he meant to me and my kids, and our kids, right? Um and thinking like I can't, like, this sucks that people just like they lose people that they love so much, and they have this gaping hole in their lives, and they're just supposed to get on with their lives. They're supposed to go back to work. They're supposed to take care of their kids. And um it's hard for me to wrap my brain around. And so um I think that's part of why this work matters so much to me, because it does give people some piece of healing. But yeah, can you talk a little bit about, the experience of, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, um, the experience of losing your dad, and what that impact has had on you, as well as like how you felt the first time that I was able to channel him since he passed.
I don't even remember the first time. You remember the
Me-
first time? I mean,
Yes, I was so
there's
many
been so
times.
many times.
I know, but when I was meditating and I asked about I didn't know it was the neighbor at the time, but I asked who.
Oh, Winnie, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember, I
Right.
was like,
When I was at work.
I,
When I was at work.
yes, and I texted you. I was in our sauna blanket that you got me,
Mhm.
and I was afraid to get out of it. I was in there for like 3 hours because I was
Mhm.
afraid if I got out, your dad would stop sending me messages. So I just stayed
Right,
there and
right.
kept talking to you from work and texting your brother to validate all these things that were coming through for me, because these were things I never knew.
Yeah, and
you
I'm not
know
sure. I know you've said you've seen him a bunch of times in the house. Like, I don't know if you saw
Yep,
him prior to that, or that was the first. I don't know if that was the
that was the first time.
first time. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's crazy. Um, I mean, I don't know. Every time you hear or see something, or he sends a message, like it's always crazier than the next one. I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what's crazier. Like that part of that one was the baseball card one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So my like that threw my brother for a loop.
Hmm. Do you want to kind of share a little bit about what happened with that?
Yeah. So long story short, the message was he kept talking about um, one single card. He didn't
Hmm.
say specifically what the card was, but it was like a baseball card. But it
A
was
rookie card, yeah.
a rookie card. It wasn't specific, but that it was in a box in a Phillies magazine, right? I
Well,
think it
no,
was.
I didn't know about the magazine. I had texted you and your brother and said, your dad keeps showing me this, what to me
Oh, I'm
looks
so
like
clear.
a rookie Phillies rookie baseball card. It's very
Mhm.
important. It's one. And, I'm texting you. You weren't answering at the time. You were like, I don't know, ask my mom. And then I texted Scott, and Scott was like, he had a bunch of cards. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no, this is one single card and it's in a box. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. And then he got back to me
Right.
and he said that I guess he had given him years
Yeah.
ago Randall
Randall
Cunningham,
Cunningham's, yeah,
which
rookie
is
card.
an Eagles,
Mhm.
football, not baseball, the rookie card. And your dad, before he passed, was feeling frustrated and was really upset because this was a very special card your brother had given him and he couldn't find it. And
Right.
then after he passed, your brother was looking through, he was at your parents' house and he was looking through, I guess, a stack of old magazines, and
Mhm.
he threw out all of them, but kept this one magazine. And when he was flipping through it, the
Right.
Randall Cunningham rookie card fell out. And I said to your brother, was this magazine in a box by any chance? Because he's telling me this was in a box. And your brother said, yes, it was in a box. And then he sent me the magazine. And because I was like, oh, what, like, this was a Phillies. I was seeing the Phillies logo, like the old school
Mhm.
Phillies logo. When he sent me the magazine, it was a Phillies magazine, old from the 80s with the Phillies logo on it. The card was in that, the Randall
Right.
Cunningham rookie card was in the Phillies magazine. So we were
Right.
like, are you
Everybody was.
joking? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
I remember
Yeah.
Scott was like, "What the hell?" Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And,
Just because it
obviously,
was so specific, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's what happens with spirit, right? Is that they don't, they're kind of relentless. Like they kind of will stay on me. And if I'm saying something, if I'm not getting something right, or um, if I'm saying something to you and you're not receiving it the way they're meaning it, they'll keep saying it. They don't let it
Right.
go. Like, that's why I'll be like, no, that's not it. Because sometimes
Mhm.
people can reach for things. Like, they'll say, oh, like, I have this one card or whatever. And I'm like, no, they'll tell me, nope, that's not it. It's not what they think it is. They'll tell me and they'll keep coming at me till either I get it right or you get it right,
I
or
mean,
whoever I'm speaking to.
yeah, and I've seen that work. Like you'll ask somebody like a name, and they're like, "No, no, no," and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, you'll figure it out." And, sometimes, like you had a group reading this past Wednesday, it was, and you got a couple texts the next day, like, "Oh my God, you
Yeah.
mentioned this," and they were able to
Hmm.
confirm it with a brother or relative or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's what I
yeah,
say to people. It's oftentimes like 80% will make sense right in that moment for you. 20% may not because it hasn't happened yet, or it's connected to somebody that you're connected to. It's meant for them. So,
yeah, because it's hard. But in the moment, there's so much emotion people are
mhm,
feeling that it's
definitely.
like they might not remember. It might be like they just can't manage
Hmm.
the information they're getting. So like once they get home and sit down and think and talk to some other people in their family, it usually it'll hit home.
100%. And that's such a great point because it is so overwhelming. I mean, I've been to, psychic mediums like years ago, and many times. And I remember that same feeling of overwhelm in the moment when you're getting all this information thrown at you and you're like, I don't know, maybe, like, and then
Mm,
you go home and it makes sense to you, or something lands and something doesn't, and then it eventually does. And yeah, so that's pretty cool.
yeah.
um so how did you know that it was it was your dad? Like, I don't know if you remember that first time that I was texting you at work and I was asking specific questions about, like, who's this person, who's that person. How did you know that it was your dad? Like, how did you know it was like something? There's no way that I would know, even though I knew
Well,
your dad for so long. And
yeah,
like, what made you believe that?
you mentioned the name of a neighbor that you would certainly not know, that we grew up with right down the street. And then
Hmm.
you were talking about a picture that I don't even know if you had even seen it at that time, but like
I
I knew
hadn't.
what picture it was. My brother knew what picture it was. My dad and his three other friends. And you specifically like mentioned them by name when you were
Yeah.
asking me about the pictures, which is crazy. So,
At all
um,
past, right? Yeah.
all past,
Hmm.
yep. Um, And then, I think, I don't know if it was the same time or another time you got a message about the dog, like his dog, one of our dogs that he was with.
Yep.
You sent me a picture, like was Pete. I don't even know if it was the name or you were just saying golden retriever,
I
and
was
you
saying
sent me
golden
a
retriever.
picture.
I described it.
Yeah, yeah. Just different things like that. There's just no other way.
Yeah, because that dog died long before I came into the
Right,
picture.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those things are very cool. I don't know if a lot of I mean, I think I've said this on an earlier podcast, but some of my listeners at this point may not know that, the way that I receive messages is in so many different ways. I'll hear them saying something to me. Some of it's kind of just a knowing. I can oftentimes smell things, a certain cologne or a food or whatever they want me to experience. The other
Yeah.
night when I did a group reading, it was a very specific cologne that I'd actually never heard of, but I got the name of it. I was receiving the name of it and I said it. And apparently that was the cologne. I've never heard of it. I was like, I don't even know what this is, but here,
That's
and the
happened.
girl was like, oh my gosh.
That's happened literally the time when one of the times when we were on the couch and you were messaging with your friend, you literally smelled a cologne
Mm-hmm.
and she confirmed it, that's what her dad wore,
Yes, yes. But I often, as you know, I oftentimes see, like you mentioned, actual photographs.
Mm.
Spirit will show me people in the picture. They'll give me names of who's in there. I can see what they're wearing, what's happening in the picture. I did a reading last week where it was a picture that was like 10 or 12 years old of this woman and her daughter. And I was asking what the connection to the recorder was, that like plastic little flute thing, like every kid has played in elementary school. And she literally said that night, my daughter had a concert, a recorder concert for like music class or something, like at the elementary school or something. I'm like, you have a picture of this? Like they're showing me a picture of this. And she said yes. And her I think it was her father was actually in the picture, not in the physical sense, but his spirit was in there. I could see like the lights shining down, and so that was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to validate those things, like this 10-year-old picture of the stranger that I've never met in my life.
Well,
Um,
speaking of strangers, like the last couple group readings, you were feeling and getting messages, but you didn't know any of the people in the reading, and you were getting
right,
messages 3 days before
right,
that
yeah.
you had to write down to go in, and they all hit home with somebody that was there.
Yeah, that's definitely happening more often now where I'm like, meditating every day, but I'm having to keep like a pen and a pad literally right next to me whenever I meditate because I'm getting like, oh, it's almost like a download. But it's very specific names, birth dates, um, physical characteristics I could describe. One girl I read at a group reading 2 weeks ago, I could describe her grandmother like to a T. She's like, that's my grandmother you're describing.
Mm.
So that's pretty wild. Jewelry, I see a lot of. Yeah. So I just want to circle back a little bit, but like now that it's been some time since your dad has passed, like how has your perspective kind of changed from like when he had first passed or even prior to, and kind of what has allowed you to heal in whatever ways you've been able to, since I know it hasn't been
Um,
tremendously long, but I mean, I definitely
no,
see you navigating
yeah,
it differently.
I don't know if it's because I'm more open-minded, so receiving all these messages is well, it certainly is healing, obviously, but
Hmm.
um, so sorry.
I'll hug you when I come up to the kitchen. Don't be sorry, by the way. It's okay.
It's just good to know that he's always around, and
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
crazy, like the rainbow when we were in Texas. I know you spoke about that on a 60 second spark that you did, but you had told me that he was talking to you and he was going to leave a rainbow. And it was like 10 hours later.
Yeah.
And the other day, like the message in the sky, you know, it's just pretty amazing that, you could still, if you're open to it, you'll still receive messages.
Yeah. So what was pretty cool about the other day, Mike and I, we take like either a 3 or a 5 mile walk in our neighborhood, and we always take kind of the same loop, either the short one or the long one. And recently hawks have been coming to me like crazy, and I'm just like, oh, they're trying to tell me something. They're like, there's no mistaking it. Like they're just around often and very intentional and low flying and like circling right above me or like following my car. Like it's very seems very intentional, and they've definitely gotten my attention. So um Mike and I were walking in the neighborhood, for those of you who don't know this piece of the story. And I mean, we saw so many hawks like flying in the neighborhood. There was like 4 at a time. Then at one point there were 7 or 8, and then they would fly away, and then they would come back and they would circle above us. And I'm like, there's my hawks. There's my hawks. Like, we were jokingly arguing, and Mike's like, they're here for me. I'm like, they're here for me. um, but I think that day they were there for both of us. I think they were there to get our attention on the bigger message, right? Which was, I was videotaping them and Mike was in the video and he's pointing to them. And I didn't realize it at the time until I went back and watched the videos that I had taken. We were there for like 5 minutes, like, and he was teasing me like, all the neighbors are going to think you're insane. Like, who's the crazy lady videotaping all the hawks circling? But like a couple hours later, we had gotten home, and after we'd eaten, and I'm watching the videos and I see written in the clouds, like, I mean, to me, as clear as day. Like, I've never really seen a word written in the clouds, but in the video with the hawk, there it literally said Robert, and that is Mike's dad's name. But what's even crazier than that is that Mike was at the cemetery the day before, and he asked him.
Wasn't it that
Oh,
day?
I think it was maybe that day, actually.
In the
You're right.
morning. Mhm.
And Mike asked him to show him a sign that he was with him. And so, like, that's pretty cool. And I love that. I love that you've become so much more open to receiving those things. And that's what I say to people all the time. Like, ask and you shall receive, right? Like they are around us all the time. Our loved ones are always there. And I think oftentimes that's what keeps people so stuck in their grief when they lose somebody, when we lose somebody, right? Because we always want to know, like, are they with us? Do they see us? Like, I want a sign, right? Are they seeing what's happening? Especially if it's someone who's been gone for a significant amount of time, right? Like, are they seeing what's happening in our lives at this moment? Or, like, we feel like they're missing these important milestones in our lives, or the lives of our children. And your dad is he always jumps to the front of the line for sure, and really makes his presence known, which I love. I love that
Yeah.
for all of us, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where were we? Or what reading were you in when that happened? Was that during the holidays? I think maybe when we were all sitting around. I forget.
Where he cut the line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was channeling maybe one of the people connected to Angela. They were coming through for me, and a close family friend of mine, people
Mm,
that she's lost kind of recently, keep coming in. And I think those three, like her best friend, her dad, and your dad, kind of fight for the top spot when
yeah.
any of you guys are around me,
Right.
at the same time. So um, that's pretty cool. But it is like, comforting. It's comforting to know, like when that rainbow happened, it was, when Jason, like my stepson, your son, was graduating from military boot camp, and it was like such a loud, obnoxious sign that he was there. He was seeing it. He had the best seat in the house. He literally told me about that there was going to be a rainbow. And I remember that day. It was 10:30 in the morning, like, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I know this is going to happen because you're telling me it's going to happen, but it's freaking pouring. It
Mm,
is dark skies. There's not a cloud in the sky, and there's none forecasted, right? There's no sun
mm.
forecasted in the day. And then literally 10 hours later, 9, 10 hours later, hadn't rained all day. It had cleared up. The sun came out. Then all of a sudden, sun shining, downpour, and then
Yeah.
like rain for 5 minutes, and then this
After you
ridiculous,
dropped Jay off was even crazier.
yeah, yeah. Um, but no coincidence, as I
Hmm.
always say. But yeah, that was like definitely one of the most incredible experiences I've had for sure. Um, what's your most memorable experience like with us and our lives in relation to the work I do? And it might be one of the things that we mentioned. If it is, just
Yeah,
that's fine too.
I mean, like the rainbow one was huge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just I don't know that there's any one specific. I think they're all unique in their own right. You know what I mean? Different. Even
True.
just this past Monday with some woman we don't even know. You know what I mean? Just I
Yeah.
think they're all pretty significant.
Yeah. Um, that kind of leads me into the next question, which you kind of touched on it anyway. But I was going to ask you, what's the most memorable experience for you that you've had while you've witnessed me deliver messages to somebody else?
Mm, well, I don't know. Like you know, your friend Angela, she flat out says like she doesn't know how she'll never be able to repay her for getting her through some of her grief. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
different. I don't know that there's anyone, but you've
Yeah.
certainly helped in this short time that you've been really formally doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've helped so many people already that like can't don't even know what to say. As you're helping them work through the grief process, however that may be for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I think it's able to be so comforting for people because it is not something that they probably expect,
Mm,
and probably don't expect from me if they do know me, because it's not something that I've done or shared or been open about for my
mm,
entire life. It has been seemingly recent to people, that do know me. I mean, I can tell you myself, if this were like somebody that I knew that was like, oh, by the way, I can connect to the other side, I probably would have been like, what? Like,
mm.
if I wasn't literally experiencing these things myself, I don't know that I would believe it, you
Right.
know? So what's, and I feel like we kind of intertwine this throughout the whole conversation sort of before we wrap up, but what is your favorite part about me being able to do this work?
I mean, I just like it's something new all the time. It's always something that um, it's helpful. It's unique. It's just it really just impacts people in a way that I don't think many other you just don't get that opportunity many times. You know what I mean? Even
Mm-hmm.
in my line of work as like a servant leader, serving others, whether it's the community or getting somebody the help they need or whatever, it's just different. It's not the same. This is more deeper or emotional. And it's just always great to see
Mm-hmm.
people leave, help, happier or
Yeah,
heal
later, right?
more, yeah, later. Like, even the one woman we met at the bar the other day, she said she was sitting in some guilt for some time and
Mm-hmm.
it just helped her through some of that.
Yeah. That is definitely, for me, I know, like, the most rewarding is just really, I'm so humbled and grateful to be able to do this work. And I'm grateful that I leaned into it too and kind of got out of my own way, because I think, like, if I hadn't, there would be so many people, not that they're not still walking around with these voids in their lives, but I think that void can feel differently when you have validation that the people you love really are still connected to you, and they are still a part of all the things that matter to you in your life and
Hmm.
your everyday and your experiences.
Yeah.
Um, so, as you know, obviously, I just became certified Reiki practitioner, and that's another kind of avenue that I'll be exploring in about 4 to 6 weeks after I spend most of my time, kind of focusing my work on friends and family and people closest to me, and really perfected in the ways that I feel like I need to. Um, what I, it's just been a very short experience for you with that, and a very new experience for
Hmm.
you with that. Having me do Reiki on you. Um, can you share a little bit about what your what your experience has been with that over this last week or so?
Sure. I mean, it was great to see you just try and add to this gift that you have. You know what I mean? And I think Reiki as a spiritual healing practice kind of works hand in hand with what you're doing. So
Hmm.
I I don't want to say allowed you or let you
Hmm.
practiced on me the other day, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I really didn't know much
Yeah.
about Reiki. I didn't know it's not so much hands on. It's more spiritual. I can say
Energy. Yeah.
that, yeah, energy. My definitely felt some tingling sensations in my toes and my hands, but it was certainly relaxing. Uh, to have, and if I felt really good after. So
Hmm.
I'm reading more about it, and certainly going to continue in that practice
Yeah.
with you
Awesome.
for sure.
I loved the other day when I don't remember if I think you said to me on the phone on your way home from work, like, you have to do Reiki on me this weekend because I had a stressful couple days at work.
Yeah,
I
right.
love that that was like something new that you were looking forward to experiencing again,
Yeah,
just
well,
another tool.
yeah, and reading about it, different things block energy in your body. So it's
Hmm.
just, if I have a stressful day dealing with things, it kind of, and that's part of the reason why, like, we both work out the way we do. Like, it
Hmm.
helps um, negative energy work its
Yeah,
way out. So Reiki obviously helps that as well. So yeah, I'm all for it.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely another really good tool to have.
Mhm.
So, with that said, I just wanted to remind our listeners really that you're not here by coincidence. You're meant to be right in this very place where you are at this very moment, and I'm so incredibly grateful that you're here. So, thank you. And Mike, I also wanted to extend a huge thank you to you for being here today and for being vulnerable and really allowing our listeners a glimpse inside of our personal lives. And thank you for showing up again, for being vulnerable and consistently supporting everything I do.
Of course.
Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining me on another soulful episode of the Channel for Healing podcast. I hope today's conversation has given you some insight into our lives and allowed you to have a better understanding of the beautifully unpredictable experiences we are oftentimes navigating in our marriage together as a result of me doing this incredible work that I get to do each and every day. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment so that I can continue to deliver the things and the messages that matter most to you. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never, ever miss an episode filled with love, laughter, and enlightenment. And please also check out the Channel for Healing on Facebook and on Instagram for more inspiration reels and videos. And you can head on over to thechannelforhealing.com to learn more about me, more about the services that I offer, how to book with me, how to contact me. And you can also check out my weekly blog, pictures and videos of live readings, as well as some of those clips that Mike mentioned. They're called 60-second sparks, which I'm hoping will be sure to ignite some added inspiration. So
Some
until next time, everyone, go ahead.
so no, some of those examples we talked about, like the rainbow and the writing in the sky, you've
Yes.
posted on there as well. So they're up to see.
Yes, they're up to see and share, and um, tell me what you love, and that way I can do more of what you love and share more of the things that you want to hear. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Until next time.